Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where the first thing you will notice today is that I have a different colour cap on. And the reason for that is because this is my crisis cap. And this is what we need to talk about today. Are Manchester United in a crisis? You know, emergency meeting. Are United currently in a crisis? What on earth is going on at the football club? What is going wrong for Erik ten Hag? I mean, in the first, 6 games of the season, we've been outplayed by Wolves, lucky to win late on. We've been largely outplayed by Spurs and lost. Went 2-0 down to Nottingham Forest inside 4 minutes. Of course, went on to win that game. Eventually outplayed by Spurs and lost. Eventually outplayed by Arsenal and lost. Brighton, Bayern. I think I've said one of those games twice. But you know what I mean. There's crisis going on at United. Today, rather than necessarily doing a tactical breakdown and things like that, we're just going to kind of have a discussion about it, because I want to get your guys' opinions in the comments down below. Now, again, this is probably something which I discussed on stream, I would imagine, yesterday. I've probably already spoken about this. United are clearly facing some problems. And as a result, Erik ten Hag is coming under a lot of criticism. Is Erik ten Hag getting everything right? Absolutely not. Is he making tactical errors? Yes. But is he mainly to blame? In my opinion, I don't think he is. And the main reason I don't think Ten Hag is the main reason behind the problem at the moment is because in each of the matches that United have played so far this season, bar that Wolves game, things could have gone so differently. If this goes in against Tottenham, it's a very, very different game. If this goes in against Brighton, it's a very different game. If this goal counted against Arsenal, it's completely different. And if United had scored this goal 3 minutes in against Bayern, it could have been totally different. Now, of course, those are all ifs. You know, they're ifs, buts, maybes. These are all fine margins in football. It's all about execution. But fine margins, it is the difference at the end of the day. That is the difference at the elite level of any sport between winning and losing. It is fine margins. It's execution in the big moments. Ten Hag, you could argue, has tactically set the team up actually all right, and those players have missed huge opportunities at really important parts of the game. All of those goals could have put United into a lead in that particular scenario. If that had happened, if United had taken the lead on all those games, United, we don't know, might have gone on to win every single one of them. So this is why I think Ten Hag deserves, you know, a little bit of leeway. We've also seen horrible individual mistakes, like Onana, for example. It's a horrible individual mistake. Again, it's not something that Ten Hag can really help. Something else that Ten Hag can't help is the lineup and the injuries at the moment. Now, what you would typically say, right, for example, after that Bayern game, Casemiro and Eriksen were horrible out of possession. We spoke about it the other day. What you would then typically do is drop them. But Ten Hag doesn't have the facilities to do that at the moment. And the reason he doesn't have the facilities to do that is because there's injuries galore in this squad, or certainly players which have been injured already this season. So we can actually, near enough, make another 11 of injured players. So we're going to do that real quick. So first of all, we've got Tom Heaton in goal. We've got Luke Shaw, left back, injured. Harry Maguire, left centre-back, injured. Varane, injured. Wan-Bissaka, injured. Ten Hag seems to think that Wan-Bissaka, Varane and Shaw all make up 3 of his best back 4. So that's 3/4 of the best defence missing. We've also got Amrabat. I would argue he's more suited to the system than Casemiro. We've got Mason Mount over Eriksen, who was signed in the summer. We've got Kobe Mainu, could play in this team. Rasmus Højlund has had spells of injury at the start of the season, hasn't been fit, hasn't been available. We've got Sancho out of the squad for various reasons. We've got Anthony out of the squad for various reasons. We've got Amad Diallo out injured. There's been a genuine crisis at this football club. There's 11, 12, if not 13 players currently injured. That's ludicrous. How is a manager meant to cope with 12 or 13 players? And genuinely, that 12, probably 10 of them you would argue are first team quality players. If you go do that to the Arsenal squad right now, I want you to take out, so let's go through their back 4. I want you to take out, who's their best left back? Zinchenko. I want you to take out Saliba at right centre back. I want you to take out Ben White at right back. I want you to take out Odegaard in midfield. I want you to take out their wingers. So, for example, Saka and maybe Trossard rather than Martinelli. They would be struggling with that. They would massively be struggling. You could go to City. You could take out the left back, a centre back, a right back. Kyle Walker out of that team, they suddenly struggle. 3 midfielders out of that team, they suddenly struggle. 2 of the front 3 not available, they suddenly struggle. The striker not fit at the start of the season, they struggle. No manager in football would be able to produce consistent performances and great results with the current injury list. It is just absurd. if you actually look at the starting 11, which has been Ten Hag's most used starting 11 so far this season, right, on average. So let's take a few players out. Højlund hasn't been in there because of obviously missing those early games. Not Sancho. Antony was obviously playing games at the start of the season. No Mount, no Amrabat, no Kobe Mainu, no Rafael Varane, I think he's missed half of them, and no Dalot because Wan-Bissaka was playing early on. If you look at this particular team, right, this starting 11, actually if you take Reguilon out, put Dalot at left back, this has probably been United's most used 11 so far this season. Who would be the striker in this system? Let's go for Garnacho on the left wing, right? Let's say this is maybe just about, in terms of minutes, United's most used 11 this season in terms of which players have played the most time. If you look at that 11, compare it to last season. Last season we were all saying the squad can't do what Erik ten Hag wants the squad to do because it's not a good enough squad, there's not enough technical players. United cannot play Ten Hag's style, so we have to be transitional, counter-attack, quite direct. Now the plan is, this summer we sign a load of new players. Now United can play Ten Hag football, technical football, keep the ball on the floor, dominate possession, break teams down. But actually, if you go through this starting 11 and compare it to last season, the only new player here is Onana. Yet this season, there is suddenly the expectation that United should be playing perfect football, possession-based football, breaking teams down. Why has it changed?
So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, JerseyFifa.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFifa for 10% off when you order.
Now yes, Onana is a transformative signing, absolutely. He goes a long way to addressing a lot of the problems in the United team in possession. But what it also does is highlights the weaknesses of other players because they get more of the ball. Last season, we all came to the conclusion that technically, and also physically, this team isn't good enough. This starting 11 isn't good enough to play Ten Hag football. So how come this season, we're just expecting it to be great? Suddenly Ten Hag is still playing this 11, and everyone reckons he's underperforming. It doesn't quite add up to me. If we give it, let's give it a month, right? So let's say Luke Shaw's still going to be out injured realistically because it looks like quite a lengthy injury. So we've got Reguilon at left back who's actually played well. But Lindelof's going to come out of the team. We're going to bring Rafael Varane back into the side. We'll stick with Wan-Bissaka because Ten Hag seems to favour him. We're going to take Casemiro out the side because his performance has been horrible. We're going to bring Amrabat in. We're going to take Eriksen out. We're going to put Mason Mount in. We've obviously already seen the introduction of Rasmus Højlund into the starting 11. The right wing problem is a genuine problem at the club at the moment, but maybe we can put Garnacho there. Suddenly, this now looks like a team which can play a bit more Ten Hag football because of the changes that we've made in midfield. We've also got Kobe Mainu as well, who could do some sort of role in this team. And I think the big thing which this will do for Ten Hag, getting players back, is one, it gives him the option to drop players which aren't performing. For example, Casemiro hasn't had a good 30 minutes yet this season, but he hasn't been able to drop him or rotate him or even rest him because there's no backup. Amrabat will provide a backup. Kobe Mainu will provide a backup, someone different which you can bring into that position. So that's obviously a huge plus. What does this team bring which that other team doesn't bring at the moment? Amrabat brings security in possession, which Casemiro just doesn't, but he also brings excellent ground coverage. Mason Mount is going to do something very similar, excellent ground coverage. That's 2/3 of Ten Hag's new midfield currently missing. So how are we expecting it to perform better than it was last season in a new style of football? Of course it's going to take time. I think fans just need to be a bit more patient. I don't think any manager could go through these problems. I think the other thing we will see with players coming back from injury is not only can Ten Hag drop and rotate players, he can also rotate systems. Because what he's got coming back into his team is versatile players. Kobe Mainu can play as a 10, an 8 or a 6. Mason Mount can play as a 10 or an 8 or even on the wing. Amrabat can play as a right back, as highlighted by Ten Hag the other week. He can play as a 6 or an 8. Suddenly, you have more options, as opposed to what you've currently got, where Eriksen can only really play one position as a kind of deep 8 at the moment. Casemiro can only really play one position, it seems, or it's the only area Ten Hag trusts him, and the same at fullback. Suddenly, by bringing these new players in, Ten Hag has a bit of flexibility. Could we see, as he's mentioned it, Amrabat at right back? That brings United to a very, very different looking system. And a very different looking setup, because suddenly you've got more technical players on the ball. For example, if we now change the team to look something like this in possession, I think that's a really nice side. And in terms of keeping the ball, looking to dominate and really control games, this 11 instantly looks a lot better, but it's in a different system to what we've seen so far this season. That is what players returning from injury or even getting their first minutes for the club will bring. Erik ten Hag knew that the midfield weren't good enough last season. And again, we all came to the same conclusion. We all said that. It wasn't just Ten Hag. Yet, so far this season, he's basically been forced to use last season's midfield. So why can we sit here and say, oh, Ten Hag hasn't improved the team enough this year? You know, it doesn't seem very logical. It doesn't seem like a very big brain thing to say that Ten Hag should be getting more out of this team when we were all of the conclusion and of the opinion last year that they're not good enough. Ten Hag's basically using the team from last year, plus Onana in goal, who is settling into a new system and causing his teammates to play a whole new style, which takes time, plus the occasional little bit of Rasmus Højlund, who hasn't played 90 minutes yet because he's not fit enough just yet. How can we expect massive differences? Give Erik ten Hag a little bit of time. If you want to judge him, give it 4 months. Let him get some players back in his team. Let him get Amrabat in his side, Mason Mount in his side, the 2 players he signed to try and fix his midfield. We all know that the midfield is the most important part of the football pitch, right? Or, I think a lot of people share that view anyway. That the midfield is where it all happens. Control the midfield, you'll control most football games. Give it time. Let us actually see Ten Hag's new look midfield and then come to a conclusion about whether or not he's doing good enough. Let us see who he thinks his best centre-backs are, then we'll address whether or not he thinks the team is doing good enough. Let us see his best front 3 fully fit and with a bit of time to understand each other's game, then we can put a bit of judgment on Ten Hag and really discuss, has he improved the team enough, or is the football good enough, or is the team heading in the right direction, are the results good enough? Until we get that, until we get a fully fit team, as fans, you just kind of got to suck it up and be patient, really, because Ten Hag doesn't have any other choice. I sit here in videos and say Casemiro's been awful. There's nothing you can do about that, though. He's not performing. Physically, he's nowhere near the level, but Ten Hag doesn't have any players which he can swap him with. To have 11 injuries at the football club is just crazy. It's absurd. It's unheard of, really. I don't know how you deal with that. Now, at the same time, you can argue Ten Hag deserves a little bit of criticism, and I understand that. I don't like the pressing structure out of possession, for example. I'm not going to talk about it today, kind of how it works, but I've discussed it plenty of times in the past 6 months. There are problems in United's pressing structure. I also think you have to look at the manager, the coaching staff, the physiotherapists, and everyone at the football club with all the injuries. The fact that these are non-contact injuries, there is something going wrong at the club in terms of the load and the intensity of the load being put on the muscles. Because I don't think it's coincidence at that point for 10 players to have a muscular injury with no contact. I think Kobe Mainoo's the only one with a contact injury, right? The rest of them are muscular based, which means a muscular pull or a tear or something like that, which only tends to occur from overusage or the wrong intensity in training, for example, from pre-season to the start of the season to the competitive games. So maybe that's where you can point fingers, but again, we don't know that as fans. So I think my overall message to you guys would be, is it awful at the moment? Yes. But it could have been so different. Again, it's a game of fine margins. United aren't winning and aren't getting those fine margins going their way at the moment. The Spurs game, United should have had a penalty. Compare it to the penalty which Bayern get for handball, for example. That's not gone in United's favour at all. It's one of those things where when the luck isn't going your way, it really doesn't go your way. United need to ride it out, basically. Certain players need to pluck up their ideas because they will be kicked out of this starting 11 as soon as certain players are back. McTominay, the work rate the other day was horrendous. Eriksen, Casemiro are struggling physically. They can't move and keep up. Lindelof's reading of the play the other night, awful. These are things and players which arguably get kicked out of the team as soon as we see different players back. Then we can start to make a judgment. But until then, the United players have got to work harder. The ones which are fit and available, until we get players back, those players are going to have to put a shift in. They've got to work really hard because they're working for and fighting for their future at the football club, realistically. I see it that way for several of them. So they've got to play like that. They've got to play like they're fighting for their future at one of the biggest football clubs in the world. If they don't, it kind of gives you the answer about whether or not they have a future at the club. So the players have to work harder. Ten Hag needs to make tactical tweaks because at the moment his defensive setup isn't working. There are problems in the way which is side presses. But in general, give them a bit of time because there's so many little things where if players had performed the way you would expect them to and delivered and executed certain skills in certain moments, United could be very, very different. United could have won that Arsenal game 2-1 with that offside call. How tight was it? That Brighton goal, was it off the pitch? Again, that completely changes football matches. So give Ten Hag a little bit of time. Eventually, you would like to think the luck goes your way a little bit, although to an extent also you make your own luck. But give Ten Hag a little bit of time. Let him get his team. This isn't his team. Let him get his team. Let him get his starting 11 and implement his playing style. Give it 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months. We gave Ole Gunnar Solskjaer even longer than that. So give Ten Hag that amount of time and then start to decide, is it really working? But yeah, those are basically my thoughts. Like I said, this isn't particularly analytical. We haven't dived into tactics or analysis, anything like that really. This is just my opinions on where the football club is at the moment, because there's people saying Ten Hag out, there's people saying crisis. For me, it's not a crisis. Not yet. It's an injury crisis, yes. But the whole football club and the playing style of the football club isn't a crisis. So just bear with the team a little bit. It's frustrating, I know. I am very passionate as a football fan. United results massively affect my mood and stuff. So I'm as annoyed as you guys by certain results recently and certain performances. But you just got to back the players, because what else can you do, really? I'll tell you what you can do. You can let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you in agreement with me, or do you think there's a bigger problem? Do you think Ten Hag is really to blame for this? Again, my opinion is that if you took 12 players out of any team, the team would struggle. 12 first-team players, that team would struggle. And by first team, by the way, I don't mean starting 11. I mean like the first 25 players. I think anyone would struggle with that. But let me know what you think in the comments down below, because you might completely disagree. Or if you actually really agree, and you agree, keep Ten Hag, keep the patience with Ten Hag, and give him a little bit of trust and faith, because he earned it last season, then again, let me know in the comments down below. But apart from that, thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.